What if the things you run from, loss, change, failure, emptiness, are not signs of something going wrong, but gentle truths trying to wake you up? What if life wasn't meant to be perfectly comfortable, but profoundly real? In this world of fleeting pleasures and constant comparison, 4 quiet truths endure, truths that cut deep, but also heal. They won't flatter your ego. They won't promise ease, but if you're ready to see life as it truly is, raw, impermanent, and astonishingly precious, then listen closely. Welcome to Trandy Wisdom, where every story is deeply true and beautifully told. In a world that moves too fast and promises too much, we often forget the truths that matter most. We chase success. We hold on tightly to what we have, and we assume that tomorrow will always be there waiting. But life has a quieter voice, one that doesn't shout, but whispers through every ending, every loss, every sudden change. Buddhism doesn't offer comfort through illusion. It offers clarity through honesty. In this episode, we'll explore 4 painful truths, not to make life heavier, but to make it more honest, more open, more awake. Because sometimes, it's the hardest truths that set us free. 1. Life is short. Time slips through our fingers like sand. In the remote hills of northern India, where the early morning fog curls around ancient stupas and the air hums with birdsong, a saffron-robed monk sweeps fallen leaves from a stone path. Each movement is slow, deliberate, like a bow to impermanence. He's not in a hurry, because he knows time cannot be hurried. And yet, it cannot be held either. The Buddha once said, "The world is on fire, and you are laughing." His words were not scorn, but a wake-up call. For the greatest illusion we live under is the assumption that we have time. More time to love, more time to fix things, more time to truly live. But we don't. Not really. In the West, we plan decades ahead. In the East, particularly in Buddhist thought, the focus shifts inward, to the moment that is already here, already slipping away. Life is short, not only because death is inevitable, but because we so often sleep through the parts of it that matter most. In Buddhist tradition, monks meditate in charnel grounds to witness decomposition, not out of morbid fascination, but to burn through denial. The body decays, the skin wrinkles, the breath falters. What we call a long life is just a collection of brief moments, each one already gone as we name it. A blink, a breath, a heartbeat. That's all it takes for everything to change or end. A scroll discovered in a Tibetan cave reads, "Every step toward the future is a step closer to death." The message is not bleak, it is grounding. Because when we hold death close, we hold life more tenderly. We stop postponing joy. We stop storing our real selves for some imaginary future where everything will be perfect. We begin to show up in our full vulnerability, our full sincerity. Now, there's a story told in Buddhist circles of a man who, while walking in the forest, is chased by a tiger. He runs until he finds a cliff and, in desperation, grabs onto a vine, dangling over the edge. Below him waits another tiger. 2 mice, one white, one black, begin to gnaw at the vine. Just then, the man sees a ripe strawberry growing beside him. He picks it. He eats it. How sweet it tasted. The story ends. This is the heart of Buddhist wisdom. Life is short. Danger is always near. Yet the moment still holds sweetness. You cannot escape suffering, but you can meet it with presence. In modern society, we are conditioned to believe that life truly begins after the next milestone, after graduation, after marriage, after retirement. But each of these only brings a new set of distractions, responsibilities, and illusions. We forget that life has already begun. It is in progress. There is no dress rehearsal. This is it. Every spiritual tradition speaks of life's brevity. But Buddhism invites us to look it in the eye, not to fear it, not to dramatize it, but to live with its truth in our bones. The Buddha compared life to a bubble on a stream, a dewdrop on a blade of grass, a candle flickering in the wind. These images are not meant to frighten. They are meant to awaken. In the Zen tradition, there is a custom of writing a death poem. When a master feels their death approaching, they compose a few final lines, clear, calm, free from fear, not as a legacy, but as an affirmation, a reminder that even death can be met with clarity and grace if we have lived our days awake. Imagine living today as if it were your last, not in panic, but in reverence. Imagine treating every conversation as if it might never happen again, every sunrise as if it might be the last one your eyes behold, every act of kindness as if it might outlive you. What would you say differently? What would you stop postponing? Life is short, but that doesn't mean it's meaningless. In fact, its shortness is what gives it meaning. If we were immortal, we'd never treasure time. We'd never feel the urgency to love, to forgive, to listen. The ticking of the clock isn't our enemy. It's our invitation. In the Pali Canon, the Buddha encourages his disciples to practice maranasati, the mindfulness of death. This is not a grim meditation. It is a way to sharpen the mind and soften the heart, to realize that clinging to youth, status, or possessions is like holding on to smoke. It passes through your fingers, but what remains is your presence, how fully you inhabited this fleeting life. There is a story of an old monk who spent years carving a statue of the Buddha. When it was finally complete, shimmering in gold and lacquer, a student asked, "How long will it last?" The monk replied, "Long enough for someone to remember what cannot be carved." That's the paradox. Life is short, and yet it holds eternity, not in years, but in presence. One moment of deep awareness can feel more alive than a decade lived in distraction. One breath taken in full consciousness can open a gateway to the timeless. We spend so much energy seeking permanence in a world that is always changing. But the teachings of the Buddha remind us, it's not permanence we need, but intimacy. Intimacy with life as it is. Brief, beautiful, raw. When we stop demanding that life last longer, we can begin to love it more fiercely. There is no need to despair at the truth that life is short. There is only the call to live it fully. And in that fullness, time stretches not outward, but inward. Not in length, but in depth. So take a breath. This one. Notice its rise and fall. Let it remind you, you are alive now. And that is enough. Because life is short. And yet, in this very moment, it is completely whole. 2. What you own is not who you are. The illusion of possession and the freedom of letting go. In the heart of Myanmar, just before dawn, a small procession winds its way through a quiet village. Barefoot monks, young and old, walk silently in single file, their alms bowls cradled like sacred vessels. They own nothing, no money, no furniture, not even the robes on their backs. And yet, their faces glow with a calm richness that defies the world's metrics of success. In the modern world, our identities are entangled with what we own. Our phones hold our memories. Our homes display our worth. And our bank accounts, whether swollen or struggling, seem to whisper stories about who we are. The brands we wear, the cars we drive, the certificates on our walls, they all become armor in a world obsessed with appearance. But in Buddhist philosophy, this armor is hollow. The Buddha taught that clinging is the root of suffering, not only to people or pleasures, but to possessions, and more subtly, to the identity those possessions create. We don't just own things, we become them. The house is no longer shelter, it is ego. The job title is no longer service, it is self-worth. And so, when we lose these things, we feel as if we've lost ourselves. Yet the truth is startling in its simplicity. You are not what you own. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha says, people who cling to wealth and possessions are like a monkey trapped by its own grasp. In some traditional monkey traps, a narrow jar is baited with fruit. The monkey reaches in, grabs the fruit, and is caught, because it refuses to let go. Freedom was always possible, but attachment made it impossible. The metaphor extends to all of us. We may not cling to fruit, but we grasp tightly at what defines us, our image, our history, our digital footprint. We believe we are someone because of the things we surround ourselves with. But Buddhism invites a radical question. What remains when everything is taken away? There is a practice in Zen monasteries called takuhatsu, where monks beg for food. It is not humiliation, it is humility. The act dissolves the illusion of control and separates being from having. Stripped of status, stripped of possessions, the monk learns the most vital lesson of all. Being is enough. In Bhutan, where the philosophy of gross national happiness takes precedence over economic wealth, citizens are regularly encouraged to contemplate death and impermanence. Possessions are acknowledged as tools, not trophies, and in that awareness, people often live more freely, more joyfully, not in spite of having less, but because of it. Ownership in Buddhism is always conditional. You can use something, care for it, even enjoy it. But to mistake it for yourself is a dangerous confusion. The body you wear, the clothes you put on it, the name you write on forms, they are temporary conveniences, not essence, not truth. There's an old Buddhist parable of a man crossing a river with a handmade raft. Once safely across, he looks at the raft and thinks, "This raft has served me well. Perhaps I should carry it on my back." And so, he does. But with every step inland, the burden grows heavier. The lesson is clear. When a tool has served its purpose, let it go. Yet our modern culture teaches the opposite. We hoard, we accumulate, we define our value by square footage and stock portfolios. Even generosity becomes transactional. Gifts are given to impress, not to connect. Our sense of self becomes so entangled with objects that any threat to them feels like a threat to our existence. But what if our value lies not in what we own, but in how we love? Not in how much we acquire, but in how much we release. In Buddhist practice, the concept of anatta, no self, invites us to dismantle the illusion of a fixed identity. You are not your car, your clothes, your curated social media feed. You are not even your memories or reputation. You are a river of experiences, sensations, awareness, flowing, changing, empty of solid boundaries. And in this emptiness, there is liberation. Look around you. Everything you call mine is borrowed from time, from nature, from circumstance. The food you eat is grown by strangers. The air you breathe has passed through 1,000 lungs. The ideas you think have traveled centuries. What truly is yours? There is power in this question, because when we realize we own nothing, we begin to live in gratitude for everything. The sunrise becomes a gift, not a given. A cup of tea becomes a ceremony, not a routine. Relationships become sacred exchanges, not possessions to be controlled. In the Mahayana tradition, there is a bodhisattva named Ksitigarbha, often depicted holding a staff and a wish-fulfilling jewel. He wanders the realms of suffering, carrying nothing of his own, yet offering everything he is. His wealth lies not in what he has, but in his vow to serve until all beings are free. This is the paradox of spiritual abundance. The less you cling, the more you can give. On the banks of the Mekong River, an old woman sells flowers each morning. Her stall is little more than a wooden crate. Her belongings few. Yet when asked if she is poor, she smiles gently and says, "No, I only have what I need. I sleep well." Her answer echoes a truth that empires forget. Peace does not come from having. It comes from not needing. To live as if what you own defines you is to live in fear of loss. But to live as if nothing truly belongs to you is to step into freedom. In that freedom, life becomes a dance, not a transaction. You stop guarding. You start giving. You stop comparing. You start being. And in the silence between possessions, you may discover something unshakable, your own presence. That presence is not for sale. It cannot be taken away. It is who you were before your first possession, and who you will be when the last one fades. So let the house be big or small. Let the clothes be plain or fine. Let the bank account rise or fall. Just don't mistake any of it for your worth, because what you own is not who you are, and who you are is more than enough. 3. There is always pain before success, the sacred struggle that precedes awakening, long before the marble statues and gilded temples, before millions chanted his name. Siddhartha Gautama sat alone beneath a fig tree. He was not a Buddha then. He was a man in agony, his body weakened by fasting, his mind tormented by doubt. Around him rose the shadows of fear and temptation, the swirling illusions of the world. Yet he did not move. He sat through the pain, and because he did, the world changed. In Buddhist history, the image of the Buddha under the Bodhi tree is often depicted in stillness and serenity. But that moment, before enlightenment, was not peaceful. It was a storm. It was the climax of a profound inner war, a confrontation with every fear and craving the human heart can carry. This is what most stories omit. Before awakening, there was pain. Always. In nature. 2. Transformation is never painless. The lotus emerges from mud. The butterfly escapes by breaking its own cocoon. Forests burn to give birth to new life. Even stars collapse before they shine as novas. Buddhism does not deny pain. It honors it as a necessary threshold, a teacher, a gate, a crucible for the self that must be burned away so truth can emerge. The Buddha taught that suffering, dukkha, is inevitable, but he never said it was meaningless. In fact, pain is often the catalyst for awakening. It cracks the shell of ego. It exposes our illusions. It pushes us to ask deeper questions. Why am I unhappy? Why do I cling? Why do I fear? These questions are not obstacles on the path. They are the path. There's a Zen koan that says, "The obstacle theoist is the path." A simple phrase that carries the weight of centuries of wisdom. In Western culture, success is often sold as ease, effortless riches, quick fame, constant pleasure. But the Buddhist path tells a different story. It says that the pain you avoid might be the very gate to your liberation. Take the story of Milarepa, one of Tibet's most revered saints. In his youth, driven by rage and vengeance, he practiced black magic that caused immense harm. Racked with remorse, he sought redemption. His teacher, Marpo, did not greet him with kindness. Instead, he broke him, humiliated him, made him build and rebuild towers of stone, only to tear them down again. Years passed in suffering before Marpa finally accepted him as a student. But it was through that fire that Milarepa burned away his karma, purified his heart, and found the silence of truth. His pain was not punishment, it was preparation. In monasteries across Asia, young novices wake before dawn, sweep floors, sit in painful stillness for hours. Their legs go numb, their minds rebel. They endure silence and simplicity, not because it is comfortable, but because it strips away distraction. It forces a direct encounter with the self. And this, too, is pain. Not the pain of violence, but the ache of unlearning, of becoming. There's a quiet courage in Buddhist practice, a willingness to suffer consciously, not to chase pain, but to face it, to bow to it. Because somewhere in the marrow of experience, we realize pain reveals what comfort hides. When everything is easy, the mind dulls, the heart sleeps. But in pain, we remember our fragility, our impermanence, our longing for peace that the world cannot give. It is in those moments, those desperate, raw, unfiltered moments, that many begin to truly practice. Even the Four Noble Truths begin with suffering. Life is suffering, the Buddha declares, not to depress us, but to diagnose our condition with fierce honesty. He doesn't stop there. He offers a cure, but the medicine requires tasting the bitterness of the truth. Without that, the transformation is shallow. A bamboo shoot bends in the wind, its body shaped by the tension of survival. Likewise, the human spirit bends under pain, but it need not break. In Buddhist psychology, pain and suffering are different. Pain is natural. Suffering is the resistance to pain, the narrative we build around it. When we accept pain, it becomes movement. When we resist, it becomes imprisonment. A woman grieving her child once came to the Buddha, begging him to bring the boy back. He told her to find a single mustard seed from a household untouched by death. She searched, but every home knew loss. She returned empty-handed, and in that emptiness found insight. Her pain did not vanish, but it transformed. It opened her to compassion. In this way, pain did not block her path. It became it. In a remote village in Laos, an old monk tends a garden. The earth is dry. The sun is cruel, but he waters it every day. When asked why, he smiles and says, "The fruit comes from those who wait through the drought." It is a quiet metaphor for the inner life. Growth, he knows, is invisible before it is visible. And that waiting, dry, empty, aching, is part of the ripening. The world teaches us to hide pain, to mask it, medicate it, distract from it. But Buddhism invites us to sit with it, to breathe with it, to let it speak. Because somewhere beneath the ache is the opening, the moment when the old self begins to fall away, the moment before the light. Not all pain leads to success, but no deep success of the soul, of the heart, of awakening comes without pain. The great teachers didn't become wise in palaces. They were shaped by exile, rejection, illness, failure. Each wound became a doorway. Each tear watered the roots of realization. To suffer is to be human, but to suffer mindfully is to begin the alchemy. Pain becomes insight, struggle becomes strength, and success, true success, is no longer about what you gain, but what you've outgrown. One evening, a student asked a Zen master, "How do I reach enlightenment?" The master replied, "By falling down 7 times and standing up 8. It is not the rising that transforms, it is the falling, and the choice to rise again. In the end, pain humbles us, strips us of illusion, clears space for what matters. It may not feel noble, it may feel like failure, but perhaps, as the Buddha showed us under that ancient tree, success is not the absence of suffering but the embrace of it, the understanding of it, and the walking through it with eyes wide open. So if you are in pain, do not turn away. Do not rush to escape. Sit with it, breathe through it, and listen. There may be something sacred beneath the suffering, a seed waiting to break open, a self waiting to be born. Because there is always pain before success, and sometimes that pain is the very proof that something real is beginning. 4. Everything can change. The river of impermanence and the art of letting go. High in the Himalayas, the snow melts silently each spring, giving birth to streams that rush into rivers, carving new paths through ancient valleys. A single thawed drop begins a journey it did not choose, falling, flowing, forever moving. The mountain does not hold on to its snow. The river does not long for the sky. In the great unfolding of nature, nothing stays the same. In the heart of Buddhism lies a truth so simple, so quiet, that many overlook it. Everything changes. The forests know it. The stars know it. Even the cells in our bodies obey it. And yet, humans resist it. We build homes and names and dreams on ground that is always shifting, and then suffer when it moves beneath us. The Buddha called this truth anicca, impermanence. It is one of the 3 marks of existence, as essential to understanding life as gravity is to understanding flight. To see impermanence not just as a concept, but as a living reality, is to awaken from the trance of attachment. Because what causes us pain is rarely the change itself, but our resistance to it. In ancient Japan, Zen masters built sand gardens with patterns designed to be erased. Each morning, monks would sweep away the previous day's work, not out of frustration, but as an act of mindfulness. This, too, must go, they whispered with every stroke. The garden taught not aesthetic perfection, but acceptance, a reminder that beauty, like life, is most vivid when we know it won't last. But impermanence is not just a poetic philosophy. It is the architecture of our daily lives. A child's first step, a friend's sudden goodbye, the way a familiar street looks unfamiliar after a single storm. Change is not something that occasionally visits us. It is the air we breathe, the ground we walk on, the mirror we avoid. One of the most painful aspects of the human experience is the longing for permanence in a world that cannot provide it. We want love to last forever. We want bodies to remain strong. We want the people we care about to never leave. But love changes, bodies change, people change, and so must we. In the Buddhist suttas, there is a story of a woman named Patakara, who loses her entire family, husband, children, brother, parents, within days. Her mind shatters from grief. She wanders, naked and broken, until she encounters the Buddha. He does not promise her comfort. Instead, he offers her truth. All things dear and delightful will change, will vanish. They cannot be kept. In those words, something shifts in her. She does not regain what was lost, but she finds a way to live with what is. This is not a cold doctrine. It is a fierce compassion. Because when we embrace impermanence, we stop demanding the impossible. We stop asking things to stay. Instead, we begin to meet life as it is, fragile, fleeting, beautiful in its vanishing. In Thailand, monks often meditate beside the bodies of the dead, not to inspire fear, but to remind themselves, I, too, will become this. In the West, this might seem morbid, but in Buddhist practice, it is liberation. To hold impermanence close is to soften our grip on grudges, on pride, on the illusion of control. Even joy deepens when we know it is brief. A sunset is never more stunning than in its final seconds. A conversation becomes sacred when we realize it might be the last. Impermanence sharpens our attention. It makes each breath count, each word matter. But this truth is not only about loss. Impermanence is also what saves us, because just as everything good can change, so too can everything painful. The night ends, the wound heals, the loneliness fades. No emotion is final. No identity is fixed. The person you were yesterday is already dissolving. You are not a statue. You are a river. This understanding can offer profound hope. To the one stuck in grief, it will not always feel this heavy. To the one afraid of failure, this, too, shall pass. To the one who believes they cannot change, they already are. The seasons within us shift as surely as those outside. In the monasteries of Sri Lanka, a common meditation begins with the phrase, "Let me see clearly the changing nature of body and mind." Practitioners observe how the breath rises and falls, how thoughts appear and vanish, how feelings surge and then soften. They do not cling. They do not chase. They witness. And in that witnessing, a space opens, not free from change, but free within it. There is a concept in Mahayana Buddhism called shunyata, or emptiness. It does not mean nothingness, it means fluidity, the absence of fixed self. Just as a wave is not separate from the ocean, we are not separate from the flow of life. To realize this is not to detach from the world, but to dance with it more freely. In Cambodia, an elderly monk once told a traveler, "You cannot step into the same river twice, not because the river has changed, but because you have." His voice was quiet, but his meaning thundered. The universe does not hold still for us to catch up. It invites us to move with it. And so, the teachings invite us to live like water, to adapt, to surrender shape without losing essence, to pour ourselves fully into the present, knowing it will not stay, to love without grasping, to grieve without drowning, to begin again. Every moment, even enlightenment, in Buddhist view, is not a fixed state, but a continual unfolding, a dance of clarity within the swirl of change. The awakened one is not above impermanence. They are one with it. Peace does not come from stopping the world. It comes from no longer fearing its movement. So look around you, the light on the wall, the sound in the air, the face of a friend. None of it will last, but all of it is real. And in this moment, you are alive within it. Everything can change. That is the wound and the wonder. To resist it is to suffer. To accept it is to breathe. To embrace it is to be free. The truth may be painful, but it also points the way home, to a life lived with presence, honesty, and peace. If this touched something in you, let it stay a little longer. Like, share, and subscribe to Trandy Wisdom, where every story helps you return to what truly matters.